Hi, and once again, welcome to the Renewable Roundup podcast from Schneider Electric. I am Russell Redding, Head of Energy Markets here at Zygo. Every week, I aim to bring you some top stories, critical climate topics, insights, and expert voices, so please do hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. This week, I'm pleased to be joined by Gabor Szabo. He's a senior consultant with Schneider Electric's Renewable Energy and Carbon Advisory team. Why is he here? Well, he's agreed to talk to me about Hungary and what's going on in the PPA market there. If you're ready for some great insights, please listen on. Gabor, good morning, and thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing this week?
I am doing very good. Thank you very much. It's beautiful and sunny here in Budapest, Hungary. So, it really helps people's mood. And it's almost weekend, so it's just getting better.
I love the optimism. That's what we like. I guess comes on. I'm not sure. I'm a little bit jealous. It's overcast here. It's quite warm, but it's also the week. It's coming down towards the weekend, so that's really good. Thank you so much for joining me. And for the people who are listening, who've given up their time to listen, would you like to just give a little bit of an overview of who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Gabor. I am living in Budapest, Hungary. I've been with Schneider for 9 years. It's going to be 9 years.
Time flies.
Yeah, time flies. It's hard to track. So 9 years, and started here in our supply team in the energy sourcing. I was looking after UK gas and power contract procurement for industrial users. And I switched to the renewables team beginning of 2022, so 4.5 years now. And pretty much enjoying it since day one.
So you kindly agreed to come and have a chat to me today about Hungary and what's going on there. So I think let's dive in. What can you tell me about Hungary and the renewables market?
So a bit about Hungary just in general. First of all, it's Eastern Europe or Central Eastern Europe, whatever we want to call it. It's a bit on the edge of the two, and not so mature overall in terms of the whole electricity energy system compared to some other Western European markets. So you don't see those type of opportunities and flexible options that might be present elsewhere in Europe. But it's getting there slowly. And in terms of renewables, I can say that it's a bit more advanced than people would expect. So again, I wouldn't necessarily compare to, I don't know, the Spanish solar environment or the wind opportunities in the Nordics. But Hungary can do more than what you would expect at first. It's very sunny. I just started with that. Like I look out the window now, and it's very bright, and it is during the majority of the year. So we have the traditional 4 seasons, but still it's mostly sunny. So it gives a good opportunity for solar, and you can see that if you just look at the pure data as well.
Very interesting. I'm not sure comparing yourself to Spain, given where some of the pure solar prices are for PPAs at the moment, is always the best thing in the world right now. But certainly I would say that Hungary, again, looking at our data and wider market context, feels like a market that is emerging and coming forward. Is that a fair take, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And again, I mean, it's not a direct comparison to Spain as well. So I didn't fully mean it like that. I think in 2025, for example, Spain generated about 50 or 55% of its electricity from solar. In Hungary, that was 22% last year, which is, I think, surprisingly better and more than what you would expect. Again, us being in Central Eastern Europe, so not really a Mediterranean environment and region or geography.
Definitely, and I think people have, as you say, woken up to the opportunities in in Central Eastern European regions and in Hungary, particularly the corporates who are looking at PPAs, which neatly brings me on, I think, to asking you about who do you see as the kind of corporates who are actually interested in renewables in Hungary, and what are they kind of looking for?
So the market itself is not so mature either, the PPA market. I mean, we do see increasing growing activity among solution providers and project developers, not necessarily as much again as it is in the western part of the continent, but there are quite a few players and international big players as well. So not just local electricity companies or utilities who also want to give it a try and do renewable and do PPAs. But we have some bigger names with headquarters in Spain or Germany and so on, who are actively developing projects here and contributing to the PPA market and the PPA environment. Now, in terms of off-takers and potential companies who are interested, I would say that generally we can think about the automotive sector. So today there aren't a lot of PPAs announced. We know about 2 or 3. Maybe there was one, I think, with Hankook Tire, another one with Holcim, which is a local cement plant. But they are not necessarily those big players. But if you look at the industrial environment of the country, we have some big German and Asian names and companies present. We have a factory for BMW, Audi in different regions of the country. And we know how these car manufacturers, especially if they want to keep a brand and build a brand, they have certain requirements and criteria towards themselves and their suppliers as well. Meaning that they have to go green when it comes to electricity consumption. So we don't necessarily have a view on what they are doing or what they might be doing in the future, in the past, but just simply knowing how the industry works, we can assume that these companies are among those who would need a PPA at some point if they are not doing it already. I also mentioned some Asian companies, again, some car manufacturers and battery manufacturing companies who, based on the same logic, potentially being suppliers of these German or even global car manufacturers, might be required to go green and not just buy geos per se, but do the right thing and go for a PPA, do on-site, all that. So again, there's a bit of an assumption here. So we don't necessarily have all the visibility and all the data on what each of them are doing, again, because the market is not so mature yet and not a lot of announced PPAs. But we can expect, I don't necessarily want to say a boom, but a growth definitely in the PPA activities because of all these companies and all the megawatt hours and gigawatt hours they are consuming all the time.
So it's really interesting because I think the thing that jumped out at me there, so obviously you realise that Hungary's got, all of, should we say, many or all of the traditional industries that you always think of, and so much more. What I pulled out from that was around the scope 3. I mean, this is something we see, with like products like Hub and obviously with advisory services, that there's a lot more pressure and desire with companies who are looking at their supply chains and looking at their upstream and downstream and their value chains. And we've had other podcasts about it, which is a subtle plug for anyone listening to say, have a listen to some of the other podcasts. But it's interesting to hear you, to pull out those things. one of the things I was going to ask you was, it's sort of related to that, was a little bit, is do you think that the sort of cohorts where maybe you get a group of smaller customers who maybe pair up with someone bigger, or maybe someone that they supply, do you think those do those happen in Hungary? Do you think you might see those in Hungary to help drive that, like that kind of value chain decarbonisation?
I would say not yet, not right now. So obviously, without oversharing and going into anything that's confidential, we
Oh
do know
yeah.
we do know that there are some companies in the region, so this part of Europe, who are actively looking into this. They could be even in neighboring countries. Not yet in Hungary. I would say definitely it can pick up in the future because of the reasons I just explained before and told about before. Right now, it's not really the case, but we are pretty much open to supporting any large corporates who want to do that in Hungary.
Love it. Great tease. Good plug. Like it. That's good. No, I like it. It's good to hear that it's kind of it's coming. Talking about obviously decarbonisation and supply chains and everything else. Many people are listening are probably like me, waiting to see what the GHG protocol are going to come out with, and wondering about matching and location and all sorts of other things. If I can ask you, Gabor, do you have a view about if the GHGP comes out and maybe say does require stricter matching, or does require stricter boundaries, whatever you think, do you think that's going to change anything for Hungary?
It could big time. I'm pretty much looking forward to seeing the new protocol and see what it will bring us and how that will change the market. For now, we just have some recent updates from SBTi, which is not GAGP, but still. And in their new guidance, the hourly matching is optional. The geographical scope is still there, but the hourly matching is not a requirement. I can only hope that it will be the same in the GAG protocol as well, because that could and would make everyone's lives easier, to be honest. As I was saying in the beginning, there's a huge solar capacity right now. So in Hungary, it already exceeded the original net zero targets. So they actually increased that further to, I don't know, give ourselves a bit more challenge. But in terms of solar, we are pretty much, there's a pretty good penetration. There will be grid constraints at some point, obviously. If we still keep increasing those solar capacities, especially on top of the nuclear plant that we have, and that is generating approximately 1/3 of the current demand in Hungary. But this is all pretty much affecting the market prices, so not really what you were asking for. But coming back to that, so more and more solar will not necessarily do any more good to the grid. We would need wind for that. And I don't know how familiar you are with the Hungarian wind regulations, maybe not so much, but I can give you a bit of a teaser information on that as well. To date,
yeah, please do. Yeah. If not just for me, but I'm sure there's lots of people who are listening who'll be like, oh yes, tell me more.
Sure thing. So until now, the wind development had its obstacles. So originally we had a 12-kilometer distance rule, which was established in 2016. Obviously, meaning that you cannot build any wind plants closer than 12 kilometers to any residential area, which pretty much ruled out the whole of the country, to be honest. I think there was one specific spot which could have worked, but then they made another rule that also wind plants cannot be, I don't know how much, close to NATO stations. And in that specific area, there's a NATO station or something. So pretty much they eliminated the option of having any wind capacity. we have some very marginal amount in the northwestern part of the country, but that's simply not enough. And then this rule was changed in early 2024 to 700 meter, which now allows obviously a lot more, or enables a lot more areas to be eligible for wind development. But again, comes the grid constraints part. So the current transmission system might not be sufficiently built to handle all that new wind generation, which is a problem. And now bringing this all back to the GHG question, because we steered away from that big time. If there would be an hourly matching requirement, that wouldn't really allow corporates to meet those requirements, to satisfy all those needs. They could be green with solar, because again, we have a lot of that. Okay, lots of them are already existing capacities, so might not be eligible for PPAs or meeting all the requirements, but there's volume. But to do the hourly matching, obviously you need wind, and that is in pretty early stages. Now that said, there are news and positive updates on the market. So just recently, I saw an article, and I dare say the name of the company because it's a public article. Alteo is starting to build a new wind plant, not a huge one, if I remember the numbers correctly, but they are doing one in next year. So they are starting next year. If they will be up for a PPA or not, that's another question. Maybe that's not their business strategy. Obviously something we have to check with them. But apart from that, we have also seen wind projects appearing in our processes as well. So definitely there is an increase in the technology and in Hungary as well.
It's interesting. I think it's on the grid thing. I think that's an area you don't want to catch up with the rest of the world on with grid constraints, because I think that's a common thing, quite across most of Europe and the US. We talk about it all the time, which is a bit of a shame. I think it's interesting to counterpoint, as you mentioned right at the top, the GHG and the SBTI. So first, I have to caveat that do not take anything I'm about to say as gospel, because I just skimmed through it and the SBTI and and took it. But I obviously I took, there was the grandfathering of old contracts, which was good news. Matching being optional, and the way that I read the boundary rules, the locationality rules, I thought, well, actually that gives you at least to work within the country potentially, but also an option to work outside it if, for example, you say I'm trying to match but wind isn't available in Hungary, but I can get some wind close by. That can potentially work for you until wind becomes a thing in Hungary. Again, very. So I felt that was workable. Obviously, it's polarized people a bit. We won't go into that, but I think a lot of people are then just, like I say, waiting to see what the GHG says and figure out what they go from there. So that's really interesting. So yeah, thanks for changing that. Is there anything else you think? I mean, obviously you actually talked about quite a lot. Is there anything else that you might see that might be on the horizon that might impact the company's decarbonisation?
In a second, just to follow up on the previous one, definitely the GHG protocol deserves another separate session. Yeah, obviously. I think so. So the connected grid part of the whole guidance is, to be honest, it wasn't 100% clear to me, like what's allowed, what's not. Like, being close to your consumption can be an option. So, and if you think about that, just looking at neighboring countries, that again doesn't leave Hungarian corporates with a lot of options. There's one or two wind projects maybe in Croatia, which is a connected grid. It's a direct neighbor. there are options in Bulgaria, which is not directly connected, but there are some huge wind farms. So I don't know if would that be too far or just enough. Another question: if we look at Romania, there are wind assets there, but Romania is not part of the EIB yet. So I would say it's still not fully rosy picture for Hungarian corporates if those rules would be in place.
Thank you for that. I think it's really interesting because you're right, Romania isn't in the AIB. That will come, I think. Bulgaria is interesting because I read it and I kind of went, well, if you've got, like a DC link, you're not synchronized. Like, say, England to France, you can't use it because it's not synchronous grid. And I kind of said that. But you think in other areas. But then there were other things that I read about, does that give you an option to say, can't do it any other way? But that's, I think it'll all play through, won't it? People will want to look at it and test it and work it out. I think it's going to be really interesting. And it's that thing where real life meets these standards and ideas that people set, and how do the two, how does it get implemented, I guess, on the ground. So thank you for that. That was really interesting. Before we wrap up, have you any other thoughts you kind of want to share with me and with the audience, I guess?
Yes, one more. So I don't know if you have heard or the audience heard about the recent political changes. So we just changed governments. A new party is sitting there now, which is something that is giving some hope and expectations to many people, especially those active in the renewable environment. So without going into details, it's not really a secret that the previous party and the previous government wasn't too supportive of renewable growth. Now the expectation is that the new one is and will be. So yeah, we still have the grid constraints and all that, but hopefully there will be more funds allocated to improving the grid, improving the renewable landscape, and allowing wind to be a more active part of Hungary's generation mix.
I think that's great, and I think that's really good news, particularly at a time when I feel like there's a danger of, should we say, politically in many parts of the world, of quite the reverse happening. It's almost the sort of, well, that's not an important thing anymore. We've got other things to look at. We've got jobs and the economy and all sorts of other things. Whereas I kind of see, energy security, low cost energy, the economy and all those things all a bit together. Perhaps some would say naively, but so I think that's good. That's good news, I think, for Hungary, that there still could be that focus on solving the grid issues and actually, moving forward in the transition. So that's great. Gabor, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I've learned about Hungary today, and I appreciate you taking the time to come and share your thoughts with us. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and looking forward to doing another one of these in the future.
Oh, absolutely. You're definitely welcome to come back.